Hello, and welcome to Jason Cavness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. Our guest is Kanako Matsumoto.
Matsumoto.
Kanako, you ready to be great today?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. It's great.
Yes.
Exciting.
Kanako is a first-generation immigrant from Japan who moved to the U.S. to escape from sexism to build a better life. She's a mother of a 16-year-old son who has special needs. She also has a deep understanding of challenges of startups and small businesses. She has 20 years of public accounting and consulting experience helping small business. And she is a master at creating solutions for challenging issues, seeking opportunities in diverse circumstances. Thanks for being here again, Kanako. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
So first thing, what do you do for fun?
What I do for fun? Well, before the COVID, I used to do a lot of karaoke. And because I grew up in Japan and that was the thing, my parents did it, and it was like a generational thing that you can actually have fun, just go out and then sing and anywhere basically. And that's kind of in the weekends and stuff when I have time. I have a little Wii machine that let you kind of download all kinds of songs. So that's what I did. And then I also love to actively, exercise. To run, but I used to be a hardcore volleyball player. So I used to find like a teams that I can join and then play volleyball.
Do you karaoke just at your house from
the
family?
That's what I.
Or do you go out publicly?
I don't go out to these public places and then but it's just because it's just a lot of different people there, and some people don't really interested in listening to singing. And I'm not saying that I'm a really good singer, but it's just one of those things that you can feel like, just gonna take off your mind for something else and for a little while. So
yes, and you play volleyball in school?
I used to. Well, yeah, in junior high and high school, that's what I did. And I, once in a while, if I find a good team, I go to a community centers and kind of join a team and then play. I haven't done that for.
What position do you play?
Well, I'm a small, so I usually do just kind of like a defending, receiver.
What's it called, like Libra or something like that?
Libra, yeah.
The only reason I know because my daughter played that in high school.
Good. Yeah. So basically that's kind of, or I do play setter.
Okay. Yeah. And when was the last time you played volleyball?
Oh my God, that was before the COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. So now it's like 3 years ago. And now I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, I want to, but I'm just kind of getting really tired of spending time looking for a team that I want to join. Yeah. So maybe sometime.
And when was the last time you did karaoke out in public?
Oh, that's another. In public?
Yeah. Like at some random karaoke club or whatever.
Yeah, that would be like a long time ago. I guess it's almost like 10 years ago. These days, because you have a karaoke box and then you have things that you can do at home. So yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's good. So you came here from Japan.
Yes.
How old were you when you came over here?
I was 21, I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you came over because of sexism in Japan?
Basically, I grew up in a very conservative city in one of the very conservative cities in Japan, and I was born in raised in a city called Kyoto, which had about 1,200 years of history, and it just did. My parents and all the grandparents just had some mindset. The girls would be girls, meaning conservative, get married when you're after high school, and then you just don't even think about getting a job or getting going to school. Higher education is like what? Why do I have to spend money for that? So, and then not that I knew I wanted to be something, but what do you do when you're 18? You're told that you just do what we tell you, and then you're a teenager, you're rebellious. You don't follow whatever your parents tell you. So I just I don't like this. I don't want people to tell me what to do with my life. And in fact, it doesn't have to be, this country, United States. I could have gone somewhere else in Japan, as long as I didn't have to follow whatever somebody told me to do. So it just happened. This is an accident. I just accidentally landed in this country.
So you came here by yourself?
Yes, I did.
So, and well, I guess first, like, why the United States? Why not,
Well, see, that's the thing. It just happened to be, I was going to college and I was really miserable in my hometown. And I was telling one of my professors, like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe I don't want to live. I don't like this, my life. Like, it just, everybody around me tells me what to do. So then my professor said, well, I know maybe you might want to try, outside of the country and see what it's like. And then you might learn something about. So she introduced to me someone in LA who can actually pick me up from an airport. And when I arrived, and then that was probably the only time I saw her.
And this person, you had no idea who she was. If it wasn't a relative, just some random stranger to help you out.
Just somebody that one of my professors knew, maybe one of her, maybe the students or something in the past. And then she was kind enough to come to the airport in LA and pick me up and took me to the YWCA. And I believe that was maybe the last time, or maybe only I remember seeing her once or twice. That's it. And after that, I was on my own.
And so, how to put this question? So a lot of people in the States, they'll say the United States is messed up. Sexism here is bad. It's all bad here. Can you kind of compare basically like Japanese sexism versus American sexism?
Yeah, and I think that fundamental issue is the same, but the United States has made a lot of progress. And well, I should say there's a lot of publicity, and then awareness has gone, when happened last, I would say 30 years or so. But in Japan, it's still just fundamentally, things has improved somewhat, but that's only in a metropolitan city. I guess with Tokyo, it might be a different story. But it just said it's really routine, right? A woman is supposed to stay home and then raise a child. And if you are, married and then your husband works, and then your husband work is more prioritized than yours. And then especially when you have kids, like, in Japan, it's just a notion that the women are more suitable to raise children. And then it just that people can't really get away from that. So I think that it's just that there's a lot of oppression of being a woman. And then also the women are more sexualized as well. So, and I don't know, it's just the age issues as well. The younger women here too, but younger women are more, I don't know how, it just really paid attention for any levels. Yeah. And but here though, I think I had gone through the same path, but there was a big improvements have been made, even though there are the fundamental issues still there. But people have woken up and then say, hey, well, just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you have to do this, or just because you're a man doesn't mean that you have to do this. But I think it's just in Japan, there's still a lot of, people feel that there's a roles divisions that by nature somehow, of course there's a biologically different, but, like occupations and who decide that engineers are, better for men. Who said that? How? Yeah, but it's in Japan. I think the people think that, boys are more, better with the math skills, and women are more better for communications, or more, like a liberal arts type of work.
Now, of course, females get sexualized all across the world, right? But I could be wrong. Isn't it really bad in Japan? Like, they only have I heard where they're like men about like all these sex dolls, like fake sex toy dolls, like. And they have like the geisha girls, it's like, of course it's better, but it's kind of like it's really bad in over there.
I don't know what I guess, what do you mean? I think it is complex. I think it's in terms of the sexism, or even think about sex. I think in this country, there's a lot of, I don't know if I get trouble in saying this, but there's a lot of religious background that comes with it. And in Japan, and in terms of that, I think they're much more open. And so just because, like you're talking about, the guys are, I don't know, playing with the sex dolls and whatnot, people are like, okay, right? And there's a lot of more, I think there's a lot more accepted sex industry over there. So,
Yeah, the United States were definitely like a conservative view. Like when I first started joining the army way back in the day, when I was in Germany, right?
mhm.
And in Europe, it's like topless beaches, people naked, whatever. Like,
Right,
I'm like, am I in the wrong place? Like, what's going on here, right? I had no clue, no idea, right? Because you could never do it in your states, right?
right,
You
right.
like they would
Yeah.
call the police on you and all kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just I don't know, is that a philosophy or how you think about it? It's a cultural thing. There's a huge cultural, I mean, it comes down to the sex industry or sex. I think there's a huge differences. This is my own personal perception, but it is something to do with a religious philosophy here in this country. But in Japan, and 99%, I don't know, maybe I haven't really done any data, but majority of the people are not super religious. There are people who are, but a majority of people are actually, they're more taken as a customs rather than religion.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, they're much more open-minded, I think.
So when you came to the United States, did you know how to speak English?
I studied English in a college in Japan, but that's a completely different story when you're learning like reading and then, you know, listening. When you come to the actual country where people speak English as a native tongue, completely different, because people speak really fast, or people have an accent, or people just, you know, so it was very challenging.
Or one word can mean 10 different things depending on when you say it.
Yeah, and even they, in certain ways, even though they know that I'm a foreigner and then probably just arrived here or whatnot, because they can actually tell from how I speak, but they don't slow down. You know, some people just like, I'm like, excuse me, can you say it again? I don't understand it. So there was a lot of, repeating and keep asking, excuse me, you had to tell me again. I don't understand.
So what are some cultural challenges you had when you first came over? Like some things that, you know, like you saw stuff on America on the TV, but you came in like, oh shit, there's nothing like this.
Now think about it, you know, it's been here for a little while, so that's like sometimes I really had to think about that. But it is a lot about, the first thing that it's kind of interesting, but people may not really pay attention too much, and it's like, what? But that in Japan, we don't, at that time, we didn't have a lot of like home parties, or people don't come to your house for parties to begin with. That if they want to go out or hang out, they go hang out at bars or restaurants, or because there's so many places that you can go to in Japan, in your neighborhood. But here, you know, I noticed that there's a lot of people have a parties and whatnot. And then when the first time I was surprised, there was people just go into the kitchen and open up the fridge without asking the homeowner. And that was like a shocking to me, like oh my gosh, people are coming into the people's houses and then just open up the fridge and then take stuff or put stuff. And it's like, is that okay? Is that allowed?
Yeah, with that, you have to assume that they already know each other, right? Like,
exactly. But it just, even in Japan, if you know each other, you just don't do that. Yeah.
Here in the States, like if I go to a friend's house, I like really good friends.
Yeah.
I'll just go to the refrigerator, hey, I'm gonna get a beer, I'm gonna do this, you know,
right.
And plus it depends too, you know, like I'm at a friend's house and I know his wife doesn't like that stuff, I'll ask, you know, but just mean the guy, you know, whatever.
Right, exactly. But here in Japan, you don't even ask that. You don't think about doing it until you're just like, you know, you just stay in it because you're a guest, and they'll serve you, kind of thing. So that was a little bit of, you know, shocking to see.
Like I've been at some people's house, like I went to the first time, you know, didn't do anything like that. Second time I say, do you have a beer? They'll be like, you know, you're not handicapped, get your beer yourself, right? I'm not your servant, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's just little things that is kind of like, whoa, yeah.
Yeah. So how long did you live in LA?
I didn't really stay there much because, well, first of all, if you don't have a car in LA,
you're done.
You're done, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, of course, because I'm only, you know, I just got out of Japan. In Japan, it just really, really good public transportation system there. So you don't have to have a car to, you know, get around. But in LA, I realized like, okay, you don't have a car. It takes 2 hours to get anywhere. Of course.
And that's on a good day.
Right, exactly. And then, you know, it's just if you had to wait at the gas stations and then all kinds of things happen. And I just kind of got tired of it. And also another thing that I shocked was how much trash was on the street in LA. In Japan, you just don't have a trash on the street. You just don't. So that was a kind of little shock to me that because in my mind, America is like there's really modern, metropolitan cities in LA and all that. And then, it just felt like, where are these trash coming from? How come people just don't, take the trash home and then throw away?
A big problem.
Yeah.
Like I was in the Army for 25 years. I've been like Germany, Italy, Korea, different places. Like all the places, like people don't realize I've never been to Japan really, just like their airport. But in Korea, the first time I got there, it was like they had these big screen TVs on top of buildings. It was like codes to get into your building, like, and the internet's so freaking fast over there, right? Just in Asia in general, so fast. And I come over like it's almost like it's still AOL dial up, right? And like in Korea and Germany, the roads get done like immediately. Here is like in Tacoma, they did a picture of this construction site on the highway, 2 different pictures. They said, guess what dates? They were like 5 years apart, the same exact picture, right?
Yeah.
Like, what have you done in 5 years? Yeah, and then sometimes looking at it seems like it's like a third world country because like, the bridges are breaking down, like
all the potholes.
Potholes, yeah.
Everywhere.
And I think it takes like, I'm making this up. I think it takes like 24 hours to get from a train from Seattle down to San Diego. Overseas, like anywhere overseas, Europe, Asia, that'd be like a 4-hour trip, like so fast.
I know. So it's just this car culture. I just don't get it. Yeah, right? It's like you're so used to getting the public transportation. It's just you just really wonder.
Yeah, and then like Seattle public transportation is pretty good, right? It's better than most places,
Right.
But like I know like over in Europe, Germany, Italy, like South Korea, like my family was with me for 3 years. My 3 kids, we're going to the subway, go over the sound, right?
Yeah.
We're in this neighborhood, like and you would see like 4-year-old kids on the subway.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfectly safe.
Yeah.
As long as you follow the color.
Yeah.
That's what you had to do.
Absolutely. That's true. It's just very similar in Japan as well. So you're so used to like, kids, the elementary kids are like riding their own buses or train and themselves, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I know in Germany, like, suppose you missed a train. Oh, well, the next one will be in like 10 minutes,
Yes, correct. Yeah,
it's like
it is. Yeah, and I can say that those are smaller countries in terms of the the land and everything. But still, once you get used to that, you feel like, wow, this country is kind of inconvenience in terms of transportation. Right?
I know. So how often you go back to Japan to visit?
Well, I'll try to at least once a year because I have an elderly mother who's still living there. And then I have a family. The rest of the family members are.
Do you have any family over here? Or just you?
Well, just me and my husband and my child. And the rest of the blood related families are all still in Japan.
Have they ever come to visit you?
They have, but because of the COVID, I couldn't see my mom for over 3 years. So, yeah.
Do you have any nieces or nephews that were like, hey, can come fly to the United States? Let me come live with you.
That's another thing. I think you kind of brought it up that's a good question, kind of like a segue to another question. But in Japan, I don't know why the younger people are less and less, feel like they don't want to challenge, the new things. And I don't know why, because it's just all strange because there's a lot of opportunities here. And there's a lot of channels that they can actually come here and study or, do things. But I don't know. It's just because for so long in Japan, society is so peaceful and then, they got everything they needed. So it just made them less hungrier.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, that might creates issues for people to kind of advancing or branching out something new. And the younger people just like, I almost like right now is like, I got everything I need. And why do I want to go to another country?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I don't know how many know about boxing. There's a boxing guy named Evander Holyfield. Like he's a boxing champion. He came from a bad background. He became a champ, like making a lot of money.
Right.
And he said something that sticks to me. He's like, it's hard to get motivated when you're when you're sleeping in silk sheets.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, he was like, it's hard to get up and get motivated and put in the work when you're sleeping in silk sheets, right? Like, so why make the progress? Why you have everything you need right there? Like,
and then it kind of had to remember those is also what United States depict outside of the country. I mean, now we have all this internet and everything. They learn a lot, but it is scary in certain ways. They talk about crimes and violence and guns and in Japan, right? I mean,
there's
a
none of
lot like
that.
none of that. So people think of us like, oh my gosh, it's
I know for me, when we were in South Korea for those 3 years, I would feel safer than the worst neighborhood in Seoul than I would some of the neighborhoods in the United States, right? Like,
it's just it's different, right? Here, I mean, I wouldn't say it is that we're in danger all the time, but
you definitely gotta be aware of your surroundings.
You have to be aware, and then there are things happen. So, but in Japan, it's like, you know, a 19-year-old woman can walk on the street middle of the 3 o'clock in the morning and nothing happens. Right.
So you probably don't know the answer to this, but I just thought about something like, you always hear about like Chinese exchange students coming here from China, getting the college degrees, but it's like people from Japan or Korea don't really do it that much. Do you think any reason that is, or?
I don't know. What do you think? I mean, you've been in Korea.
I think part of it is like you said, you know, the Japan and Korea, they have their economies going pretty strongly, you know, they're, you know, life's pretty good for them, you know. For China, they're still like, even though like the modern country is still like, you know, like kind of a rural country, you know.
Right. And then China probably is very, from my point of view, China seems to be very competitive. There's a lot of competitive culture. And then people always kind of wanting to more and wanting to advance more. Maybe, I don't know, that's how many years about 4,000, 5,000 years of history, they really always have to be kind of trying to get ahead of everybody else and whatnot. That might be the social, I don't know, culture. But I think Korea and Japan, it is, it's pretty peaceful, right? I mean, especially Japan, and you know, after the World War II, they never really had any conflict with another. I mean, there are threat there because of the North Koreans and all that, but as a country as a whole, they really haven't had any wars or anything like that. So most of the people who live right now, they just only know the peaceful times. And
the nice paychecks, you know, the nice weekends, you know.
And things are changing because it is in Japan, and you know, for 20 years or so, or maybe even 30 years, they haven't had an inflation. So they now have a really serious question about, you know, wages are not going up, and it's kind of opposite from here. So, but then until now, I can say that people felt like, okay, I mean, I got everything I need, and it's peaceful, and it's safe, and what else can I ask for?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think about that. That's a very good point. So is this your permanent home now?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And then, you know, I have a child, and then earlier you mentioned that I have a child who's 16 and has special needs, and you know, it's just when I mean, you know that you're a parent, and then, but especially when your child have some challenges, you kind of have to commit as your parent, and then kind of lay out the kind of think about the, you know, life.
And you just have the one child?
Yeah, I just have a one child. Okay. And then so I think that this is a place that I wanna.
Okay. And was your child special needs since he was born, or it came on later on, or?
Oh, he had the ADHD, but also he on top of that, he also have some sort of a developmental delays that we can't really kind of put hands on. He was always, from a day one, we knew that he was, I mean, growth wise, he wasn't really following the milestones. So we kind of knew that something going on, but he is catching up slowly, meaning like he always like 5 years behind, or you know, I mean, right now, I mean, when you're 3, he's behind 1 year, or I mean, that gap is getting bigger and bigger. So, but I think all those parents who have a special needs, at some point we accept that, and then we kind of have to like think about, okay, what would be the good life for him that we can actually kind of help him to achieve.
So you operate the 11-year-old level right now? What level does he operate now as far as age?
But I think it is about 11. Okay. You know, he's 16 and he's going to high school, but he's in something called ILC. That's an individual learning center. So that's where I think it's how many kids in one class, but you know, the similar the students that are in the class that are taught by a special needs teachers. Yeah.
So are you and your husband going to have to like take care of him for the rest of his life to some extent?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm still kind of, it will probably takes longer for him to become like adults that independently. But we can see that for my son's case, I think it will just take as much as more time than anybody else. But slowly, I think he can become independent. So the other case, it's like 18, just you can throw him out and then say,
Yeah.
hey, you're on your own. But for my son, probably it's not the case. It might take another 7-8 years to kind of understand what means to be independent. So my husband and I is kind of like laying out, okay, we just have to live longer, right?
Yeah.
And then work until 80
Yeah.
years old so that we
Yeah.
can actually provide for him.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, just never know. But
So is this something genetic or?
no, I don't think, I mean, well, I think ADHD, then most of the time, I think it's a genetic. But then for the other things that we never know because we haven't really done, I mean, there got to be some sort of a test that you can do, but I'm sure it costs a lot of money to do that.
And how old was he when when someone told y'all,
So from day one, he couldn't nurse. So I knew that he was born right next day.
That's a big indicator.
That's a big
wrong.
Yeah,
That's a big indicator something's wrong.
Exact indication. And then I heard that things happen. So I wasn't really worried about that beginning. He just couldn't nurse, and then he was able to. We did all kinds of stuff to nurse him and feed him. And the first month he lost weight. It's the opposite of babies usually drink breast milk and whatnot, and then gets bigger. But in his case, he was going opposite way. So I was alarmed, and also the doctor was alarmed, and we tried to do all kinds of stuff, but he couldn't really nurse directly from my breast. So we just resorted to some other things, just went to the bottle or tubes or whatever. So but then he's he grew. I mean, as far as the health goes, he's healthy, but as we knew that he couldn't walk on his own until like 18 months. And then he couldn't talk until probably like 3 years old. And then, he was wearing diaper until he was 4 years old. So, I mean, you can see it's just like every milestone is like fail.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, I was worried that at 2 years old, it's like, oh, is he going to wear a diaper for the rest of his life? But then, of course, he got out of it. So
how did you deal with this? Like at the time, I'm sure other parents are like, my son's walking at 12 months, my son's talking at 16 months. Like, how do you deal with that? Like, as far as me, like, as far as not criticizing yourself, like, oh my goodness, my son's not doing this. I'm a horrible mother, right? How do you stay positive and say, hey, this is what's going on?
I think it's hard because first, of course, you feel like, how did this happen? Well, did I do something when I was pregnant? Or you always think about that, right? Because how not to? You think about it, how did that happen? It's like, I don't know. I mean, you can't really blame for everything. Sometimes there is no reason. But then, so you go through that process of, at first you're shocked. And I think just like any other, like a grieving process or something like that, for the parents who are have a special needs kids, I think you go through this similar process of discovery and then kind of shock waves come in, and then kind of almost like this, not a disappointment. I don't want to say disappointment, but it's like, okay, what to do? It's like frustrations and sadness, and then kind of hopelessness, of course, because you think that your child would be, just normally developing, the milestone, hitting the milestone and all that. But then it's at some point you accept, because that's your child. You love him so much, and there's nothing you can change that. And then you kind of, once you accept that, you feel better. And I have seen so many parents go through the process, and then there are people that we just can't accept it, right? Especially like a mild case of a special needs or somewhat that there's a lot of people out there who, kids out there that who are diagnosed or almost diagnosed with autism or ADHD. And then the kids are all kinds of different spectrum. So you can't really say that, okay, this child's like this, so it's exactly the same like that guy, or it's just not possible, right? But it's as a parent, especially when you're a new parent, it's very hard to accept that.
So is it safe to presume that you haven't had any other kids, so you could focus on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I already, because I was working all along, right, as a to make a living, of course, and as I think this is all comes with this, my background, how I came here, and then the fact that I don't have an extended family here. When you have a child, it's hard to kind of balance your work and home life and parenting. And the company that an app that I developed is based on, literally my own experience where I was struggling I was running late to, pick up a child from a daycare. And then, now it's the traffic coming back to the stage again, but accidents happen and you get stuck in the, traffic or in I-90.
Or someone at the job says, can you just stay one more minute?
Exactly. That's exactly it. Or your client that you're trying to reach for last 2 weeks and then calls finally at 5:30 and then you're like, should I take it, not take it? But you take it.
Yeah.
And then, you can't just say, oh, I'm sorry, I had to go because I had to pick up my child.
Yeah.
And what do? You're just going to hang it, because you just have, sometimes you feel like you have to. So then you're like, oh my gosh, my, childcare closes at 6. What am I going to do?
Yeah. And every minute you're late, it's like charge you like some crazy amount of money.
Exactly. They used to, I hear, each child provider do differently. But I heard that it's last time in downtown Seattle, they charge like $50 a flat fee for even 1 minute you're late or something like that, or $2 per minute. And I hear all kinds of different, but I do understand the other side as well, because from childcare perspective,
they want to go home too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they want to go
and
home
you
too.
gotta have to do something because you can't just, it's okay, drive carefully. That's all they all say that, but I can see, it's like, oh my gosh,
like, they got to go home and cook dinner. They might have to go to a kid's game or whatever,
Exactly. They have their schedule too. So this uncertainty that somehow you created, it's like a domino effect to other people. So that's my own experience. And I thought, and then I saw other people coming in on time. I'm like, I don't know how they managed to do that, right? And then I thought, if I could just one click and while I was driving safely, and then ask them to pick up or sign out my child and wait for me there, I would be so happy and with less stress. So then that's how kind of came up with the idea of, I got to have an app.
Yeah. So we're definitely do a deep dive in your startup in later on. But next I want to talk about, before you got a startup, you're an accountant like 20 years, right? So just me personally, when I think of startups, I don't think of accounting, right? Like, like accountants, it seems like it's mundane numbers.
I know.
Same thing. No creativity.
Right.
It's like, do the same thing over and over again. No new business ideas, So talk about the transition of going from an accounting background to being a startup, like completely opposite mindset.
Here's the thing. Again, in my life, everything accidents, right? Like coming here in the United States is an accident, because one of my professors, that she kind of said, oh, I know somebody in the United States. And that's why, I didn't even know what exactly United States, what I can do, but I came here because I just wanted to escape. And then the accounting too, it was an accidental occupation. I never really dreamed, if I asked about 30 years ago, right? Somebody asked me, then what would you be doing? Oh, you're going to be doing an accounting. Then I'll be like, no way, because I'm actually a very creative person. I have a lot of imagination, and I know imagination.
So
and
20 years of accounting didn't kill your creativity?
Almost did, but it didn't, right? And so, but accounting is just one of those things that you do, like, well, okay, what do you do to make a living? You gotta have to do something because you do have to eat. So that's one of the things that somehow I was good at it. I went to school, then I was one of the top students, and somehow it just came easy to, although yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm a really like numbers person, but I'm really not, because I'm not funding. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it became easier for other than other things. So I thought, okay, then I'm just gonna pursue that and see what happens. But eventually I knew that if I learn about accounting, I thought that I will learn something about the small business, because you get to deal with a different type of a small businesses and you can learn something. So that was a lot of motivation, not because I like that doing taxes.
Is your degree in accounting?
Yeah, I have a degree in
What school is it from?
at University of Washington,
Okay.
and I got a CPA license.
Okay.
So it just kind of, I took it to all the way, because once I started, I might as well just finish it, And then did I think about I'm going to stay as a CPA and working for a public company forever? No, because that was my motivation was.
Not your dream goal for your life.
Yeah, exactly. And again, there's incredible accountants out there who really, way smarter than I am. But to me, it was like a process of learning something.
So for all the small business owners and startup founders out there, right?
Mhm.
Of course, everyone knows you got to do tax, got to do accounting, right?
Mhm.
But it's probably the one thing you'd rather like cut your toenails off right than do accounting right. It's just like,
I know it's such a tedious thing.
Yes.
Then it's all the compliance and everything that you're gonna have to follow the rules. I totally get it. Yeah.
So for the people that are looking for accountant or bookkeeper, CPA, what advice do you have for them for find the one for them?
What I see? What? Yeah, sorry.
Advice to find like a bookkeeper for them, accountant that they should be using. Like what should they be looking for when they bring on their own accountant or CPA or whatever?
I would say, yeah, that's a good question actually. But I think it's somebody who really understands what your challenges are, because just like anything else, one doesn't fit all, and your needs are different from another person's needs, another company's needs, and then you can do a different ways. Accounting can be done different ways, right? You can do hire a bookkeeper, or you might learn something. You might be able to do certain bookkeeping work on your own, because it depends on the size of your company, and you might not have enough budget to pay for the bookkeeper and whatnot. So I think I would say that if you're looking for CPA or bookkeeper, try to ask them a question as much as you can and see if they can actually customize, services that you need, because there's all different kind of services out there, and then understand the industry. And another thing is it's understanding about industry. Your particular in is so huge too, because each industry is so different.
Yeah.
And then depends on the industry, how you account for is different as well. Yeah.
I know. I guess like recently, probably like a couple months, I'll get either email or LinkedIn message like once a week from somebody in India or Bangladesh. I want to be your bookkeeper. Guy, I'm not gonna give my bookkeeper to someone I don't know, especially some random country across the world, right?
Exactly. And then even I heard that the larger known very major CPA firms, that they actually outsource some of the tax preparation out there too.
Yeah.
And I just something I was like, really? Do they understand it? Because there are things that are, unless you live in the country, that you may not really understand what really going on, or there's a lot of stuff that is just, even business is it's like a living thing to me, right? So it's hard for someone to just take it and run with it.
Yeah.
If you really don't have the experience, it's just like anything else, I think.
So next, talk some about the challenges of being a working mother, or working single father, or just working parents in general. What's some of the challenges?
The challenges, I think, in this, I'm kind of thinking in these developed or modern countries, and how we tend to have our own single. Family is like sometimes you have you and your husband, or you and your partner and a child. So you're like really isolated, and in that case, you just don't have a lot of help that you can get immediately. And that's the challenge that I think, as especially when you're working. This is just my own philosophy. I grew up in an extended family. My grandparents are there. and then my parents had a retail business, so they're busy, but grandparents helped. And that really, hugely helped my parents. And then as far as the child rearing, I think, because when I come home, my parents are gone, but my grandma was there to watch me. And so I just think that I'm hoping that extended family type of idea. I think here in the Asian cultures in this country, a lot of people are still doing that. But as they know that, I guess it's I don't know what you call it. It's just the typical standard American family. They don't really live with the extended families, and then they don't get extra help. But I understand why. I mean, there's some personal spaces you need and privacy and all that. But I see a lot of I don't know, benefits for having relatives and then just to help each other to, to raise a child. And I'm completely in favor of a philosophy that it really takes a village to raise a child. And then your child is not just your child. I think the child does have a future in the country, and you should, any child it should be part of your, I don't know, how do I say, part of your agenda too.
I know when I was growing up, myself and even my kids that me and my wife raised, like everybody be outside playing, you would say, hey, little Tommy, don't do that, your kids. Now it seems more like, like you like correct someone else's kid, they yell at you like, don't talk to my kid like that, that's not your kid, so like that's definitely changed, I think, in the United States.
So I think that's kind of like exactly what you're saying, because if you're in the neighborhood back in those days, your neighbors actually really kind of care about, just like they acted like your own parents and say, hey, don't do that, don't do this.
They will curse your kid and can tell you, hey, Jason, I had to do this to your son, right? And you be like, thank you, right?
Right.
And then you get on your son and like, what's your problem, right?
Right.
But nowadays it's like, hey, I correct your son. You're not their father. What are you doing? Like,
right.
Like my son's never wrong, right? It's like, I don't know how that mentality switched. So when that happened, but it definitely happened this generation.
That's the private generation change. And I feel like I feel like that needs to be brought back, because that's the, as a community, we need to raise a child, because it's just not just one person's responsibility. Because I always say this might be a really extreme example, but I think that, it's a society, you get affected by one person's actions in a way. We've seen that many, many, many times. Some crime has occurred and then one person takes action, and then what? The rest, there's so many people affected, and then not just the victim, but there's a really domino effect on that one action. So I feel like we all need to have, as a society, take care of all the kids that are, and I mean, the younger kids and younger generation, we need to take care of the younger generation.
So how was the Japanese community in Seattle area? Is it a pretty strong community as far as Japanese community?
I would say in terms of the population, it's much smaller than like a Chinese community or even the Korean community, but still it is it's a fairly large community in this. It's kind of scattered around, but there's a lot of small businesses that are that Japanese immigrants have started, and it's just like anybody else. They have gone through the challenges for the COVID, and then they just like because we have a lot of military base in Japan, so there's a lot of women actually married to the military soldiers, and then eventually move over here. So there's in Tacoma, right, or Fort. What is that?
Fort Lewis.
Fort Lewis. So I hear there's a lot of the Japanese women moved over here with the husbands and then live in this area. So there's quite a bit of the military families as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now in Japan, they were like really locked down during COVID, right? Were they like, I won't say extreme, but like there's like they did some crazy, almost crazy stuff, right?
I think it was extreme, and it still is. So they just really actually this week we call it they just ended maybe Japan they call it a golden week, because the holidays are back to back. So they decided that they make it into like almost like a week-long holiday week. And I think they just loosened that rule they had in the 29th or something, because there's a lot of foreign tourists are coming in and they really want the tourists coming over and then drop the money. But they had one of the very strict rules against having a COVID coming into the country. Yeah,
I could be wrong about this. I might be making this up, but it seemed like I remember seeing stats where like the stats like countries were like really like COVID strict, extreme compared to countries like do whatever. I think it was either Denmark or Norway treated it just like the flu, right? Everything was open, just get your shots.
Right.
And the stats as far as deaths, illness, weren't that off, right? Of course, the extreme country like a little bit lower, but it wasn't that low. Like, okay, it was worth all this extreme stuff to have these numbers that low, right? That is like minimal difference in numbers,
Right. And I don't know how. Well, the one thing, because it was kind of set the rule easier for them, is because it's an island. So
that's a great point.
You had to go through somewhere from a border, and
you're not driving.
You're not driving, going through and passing through.
You're not driving to see Japan or whatever thing is. Or
and then,
sea.
Gosh, it's just in the beginning. There first, I think that at least they had like 10 days of a quarantine, right? Everybody, you stayed in a hotel, and then you can't even go to the hallway. You had to stay in a you had to stay in a room
for 10 days.
And
I don't know how many people batshit crazy doing that,
Right. And then like I have one of my friends who actually went back because her I think one of her parents were sick or something, and she took 2 small kids, and you can imagine if you stay in one small hotel room with the 2 little kids, and then they'll deliver you a bento box or something like 3 times a week, but it's not something that the kids can eat 3 days, 3 meals a day. And then I heard that they like randomly call you with a video and say, show me where you are. And they'll keep tracking with the GPS. And then I heard that like most of the time they call between 8 and 4 or something during the week, work hours. So people are kind of went to the convenience store after 4 p.m. and they're thinking that, they're not going to call me. But then once in a while they call and say, show me where you are.
My camera's not working right now.
Exactly. So there's a lot of extreme tracing to make sure that you are staying where you are. And it just like, I'm sure people will go crazy in that environment.
So what do you think about this? I know in China, they're doing this all the social media, like scores, right? You like, if you do something bad, your score goes down. You can't do this. And like, they're tracking every level you have. Like I saw something on the internet where like, they have a setup where the kids in class, the computer can tell if they're actually paying attention, right? And they get a lower score, higher score. I mean, that's some, to me, some scary stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think in that sense, China, it seems to have it's a whole separate, I think, level. But in Japan is not as much. But I think what is going on with social media right now is really everything about rating, right?
Yeah.
And then then another thing that in Japan, I think this is a bad habit of Japanese people that are, again, this is my own opinion, but if you because you can say anything you want without telling you who you are, right? Because you can use whatever the font, made up names, and then you can criticize people, and that's something is really going on right now. Just the kind of it's just criticizing people endlessly.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that there should not be any anonymous on the internet, right? You could put like GMC 1921 or whatever, but somehow they have to go and find out, see who you are, right?
Right, exactly.
Because there's too many like Twitter cowards out there, saying all this stuff,
Yep.
And it's ridiculous.
If you can't say it straight out with your own name, don't say it. And that's what but that unfortunately though, I think that's the social media allows that. So I see that, I guess it's an unfortunate side of that a lot that people are dealing with.
Yeah.
So
for your own startup, what's been some challenges for you with your startup?
And
you can't say everything.
I think it just did. Now I know that what I didn't know And that's the challenge, I think, because I always go back in hindsight. I wish I knew this 5 years ago, but it's too late. I know everything it's a challenge, but I didn't know how hard it is to market. That's the one thing I thought, right? I mean, I think that's like a miracle. You need some kind of miracle portion to be able to tell what works and what doesn't. And nobody knows that 100%. But I wish I could have. I just learned. I wish I studied it a little bit more. What works? What sticks better than anything else? You know, so that I don't waste my time or money. But I didn't really. Yeah, I don't get. I didn't think I did enough homework in terms of marketing.
So you want to go back in time and do it all over again?
If I could, but then you learn.
Yeah.
During the time, anybody, right? You and me, and the other people who are doing it in a startup, we learn from our experience. So, but I'm glad I did, and then I mean, it's nothing easy. So, but I enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I started.
So, what's something fun about doing a startup?
Creativity.
Yes.
Right? Nobody's telling you can't do this, you can't do that, as long as within the border of the laws that allow you can do all kinds of kind of way of doing approaches. So the creativity, you can use creativity to approach the issues and problems, or even just new things. So I like that. It's you don't have a box that you have to stay in.
And so is your husband with your startup too, or he does?
No, he does. He's an artist.
Okay.
But he does have a day job, and then so I don't not let him, but he said it's just this is my thing, and I'm just gonna work on it, and
Let's talk about this. Talk about how important it is to have like your spouse support you if you have a startup.
Oh, right? That is huge. I mean, don't you think, Jason?
Yes.
Anyone in your family or friends, and I mean, if you don't have a support, that's a really lonely place to be at, because I quit my day job to do this, and your spouse or partner who doesn't really agree with you because you're going to be losing your means of making a living. You don't know what's going to happen in your future. Unless you have 100% support, that will be could cause a problem in a relationship.
And I think it has to be actually support. You can't be, like, I support you, but every day they send you a job description. Hey, they're hiring for this, right? You should check it out, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, it just like my husband too is just he's still worried because one, you're gonna have to. I mean, that's realistic because we have a child with special needs, and he think about right. What's going to happen to him? We need to really save money as much as we can. I mean, that's the first thing as a parent. Yeah, of course, I'm totally get that. But in the same time, for me, when I'm not happy, I can't be a good parent. If I'm sad because I'm gonna, how do I say? Well, just because, so let's say if I stayed as an accountant and working for a large public accounting company, I would have probably made more money or had more vacations and whatnot. But that just didn't really make me feel, it's just that I didn't feel like that's I can do forever. And that didn't make me happy 100% of the time, all the time. And that's, I don't believe you can be a good parent at the end of the day. So, it's just all kinds of how you see it. But
so this question for you, like, I think every founder needs to have a red flag, right? Like, what makes them stop? What's your red flag? Like, if this happened, like, you would have to stop and get a job. Like, if you didn't get like product market fit, or like within 3 years you didn't have sales, or
probably if I had to spend another $20,000-$30,000, keep going, then this will be. It's something that it's not sustainable. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I have a budget that I can spend, but now that, because Apple has already developed, so in terms of that, there's a lot of money outlays. But the continuing to keep this going, and if somebody told me, oh, it's going to take another $100,000, and I said, no,
Yeah.
that's more worth it.
Okay.
Right.
So next, talk about why you're doing a community empowerment solution versus something else.
Because I believe in a community. And then, you know, it's kind of like maybe it's like little cheesy, or I don't know how to say. People are like, oh, community. Yeah, we know that. What are you talking about? Of course. But personally, that what community empowers a lot of stuff. And then can I tell you one story? The beginning of the year. So after 3 years of the COVID, I was finally able to go back to Japan the end of December last year to see my mom. And on the way back, so my son and I went, and my husband was here. He didn't go. And we came back on January 3rd. And I usually pay attention to my son's, what he's doing, going through whatever. And in Tokyo, it was just that particular day, it was so crowded in Narita airport. And it was long line and going through the security. And somehow the security was just, it was very, it was disorganized. And some people went this way, some people that way. And I was like, I couldn't. So I was keep looking at my son, what he's doing, because he was taking out his computer and all that. So I was like too much paying attention to my son's, what he's doing. I lost track of my own computer. And I thought, so then you go through the security, right? You think that you put everything in. I didn't realize that until I got to Canada that I didn't have my laptop. Oh. So I left Tokyo without my laptop. Then I was like, in Vancouver, Canada, I was like layover and then coming back to Seattle. Then realized that, why is my laptop? It's not there. And I was like, did it? So and then I realized that, oh, it gotta be in Tokyo, because that's the only time that I actually open my bag and take it out. So I got home and then I called the Narita airport and asked, do you lost and found? Do you have my laptop? Blah, blah, blah. This is the serial number, all that. And they say, you're lucky. Well, yes, we have it. I was like, yes, thank you. But then that's in Tokyo. I'm in Seattle. I was like, what? How am I going to get the laptop back? And I called the FedEx and said, I have a laptop that I need to be picked up. And how much is it going to cost me? They said about $1,000 to, $1,000 to ship it. And then within, I needed to have it because that was the only one laptop that and then I think it was next day or day after, I need to do some sort of a presentation or some kind of application that I need to do. That was a due date. So I was like, oh my gosh, I really need this. And then I was recognized, like, what can I do? So then, am I really pay $1,000 or what's my choice? So I kind of went through my head and it's like, what can I do? Then it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do first. I'm going to go through my community and see if anyone out there that are going through a Tokyo airport right now. And maybe he can actually pick up my laptop and come home. After, I don't know, maybe 2-3 hours, I found someone who was going through, literally heading to the Tokyo airport. And I was able to connect with her. And I told her, here's what happened. I want you to go to a lost and found department. I'll arrange everything and I'll give her your name, all that. And yeah, she was able to get them my laptop, and within 24 hours, I had my laptop back in my hand.
And without spending $1,000.
Yes. And then I talked to this lady and I said, well, thank you so much. Blah, blah. And I said, oh, it's only took 5 minutes. I mean, I didn't hang up. I just showed up and you gave your name and it gave me your laptop and I had to put it in my bag and go. So long story short, that's the power of a community. When you have a really supported community, you can actually, things happen, the miracle happened. And then for her, the person who helped me, she literally took 5 minutes. She didn't have to do anything. Yeah. And for me, that's like a lifesaver. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody these days, phone, laptop. I mean, what do you do without it? I mean, next day you're lost. right? And you feel like I mean, not that, I mean, I think we put too much emphasis on those devices, but the reality is we feel like we lost one arm or
Yeah, we
something.
do. Yeah.
Right.
My whole life is here.
Whole life is there. Yeah. So for me, that was a lifesaver action. But she only took 5 minutes. Said she's just like, oh, no problem.
I mean, something similar, like, my wife will ask me, what are you doing next Tuesday? I have to get my phone. You don't know what you're doing next Tuesday? No, I don't. Know what I'm doing next Tuesday.
Exactly.
I have to look at my calendar. Like, I have no idea what's going on next day or whatever. And I have to look at it. You know?
So what my point is that community has a power. That's something you can even imagine. And I just keep telling this story because this happened to me. And without that, without my community, that are people I know, that are people who, I'm connected, I couldn't never imagine having my laptop come in within 24 hours. Who could, right?
So why focus on childcare facilities versus schools or churches or thousands of other things you could do? Right.
Because I mean, one is, I think it's easier to entry because there's a lot of there's a numbers of childcare providers out there that who take care of smaller children. Because I think as a parent, I think you probably agree with me that when the children are younger, there's a lot. I mean, it's much harder to coordinate stuff. So that's why I feel like it's childcare providers and then their parents that are whose kids attend there are the one that are who probably most likely to be able to use my services.
So most childcare kids start going there when they go to like 6 years old, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like from 0 to, so most of the when you say childcare, it's like usually 0 to 5, right? Yeah.
So I'm sure you have a plan, like what's after the childcare? Like you're gonna go to a different facility after childcare to keep this going, or you only be focused on childcare?
Right. Yeah. And so my focus is, and because I this is one of the things I learned, right, about marketing. You kind of have to focus on one thing at a time, try to go. Yeah. Because that's not really, so I'm focusing on childcare because that's the one thing I really want to, I mean, that's where my idea came about. And then that same theory can be used for the aftercare. Once the child goes to the elementary, it's the same scenario, right? So, but yeah, it just in terms of the timing, I guess, that I'm focusing on.
Is this just in Seattle area you're doing right now, or
no, entire United States?
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at other countries as well, but again, you're gonna have to focus on one thing at a time. So, I mean, marketing through my email campaigns and whatnot through entire United States.
And so, how do you what kind of safety precautions are you doing? Like, do parents have to do a background check to use the service? Like,
it's a good question.
Because always like one, random person, like,
right,
not a good person, right?
Right, exactly. So that's a great question, and that's a really frequently asked question. So here it is. As part of this app service, no, we don't do background check, or we don't even incorporate that. The reason that is, one, the childcare provider has already vetted all the parents once. Okay. They know who you are. They know the phone number. They know where you live, and they know their children. And this app is specifically dedicated for the parents whose children come to a particular childcare. So if you are a friend of a parent or something, you can't really use that because there's a security system, meaning that you have to have a security code to be able to even download it. Okay. And then parent has to be verified between the company and the childcare to prove that you are who you are.
So what happened in this situation, right? Like, suppose we have 3 kids at that childcare center, and you want me to pick your kid up, right? But for whatever reason, I have a car wreck or something happens, I can't pick your kid up. What happens then? Is it a backup plan or? Right.
So, right. So then you can there is a communication device. Let's say you offer to help, and then this is, I think, what you're saying, you have fed, but you had an accident or something. Then there's a communication device where you can actually tell them, hey, we can't do this. You can cancel that. So then you can, if you're a recipient, a parent who are asking for it, you can actually click it and then try again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many people can pick a kid up? Like, can you put like everyone in the child care facility to pick a kid up if you want to? Or
if there's enough participants in there.
Okay.
So because one click goes to every, so let's say there's parents, the 30 parents in this community, around this childcare. The one click will go to the 30 parents who they say they are available. So there is a choice for a parent to be in the app. They say, I'm available this and this and date. And if they say, no, I'm not available, you don't get it. So if there are available parents, 30 of them, they will get all the messages. And whoever accepts it first will get that. So, if that person doesn't work out, then you can actually cancel it and then try again.
So how do you protect yourself as far as yourself, your business? Like, Mr. Brown picks up someone else's kid, right? And he goes, drinks a beer, has a wreck, or, does something stupid, like how do you protect yourself to make sure you don't get sued? Like when people do dumb stuff and doesn't fall back on you.
Right. So then that's where it's a privacy and all the user license agreement. We should specifically, this is not, how do I say it? This is for a device to build a community, not that I always say, this is not a ride share.
Okay.
You have to do your own, make your own decision. Okay. And also this is a recommendation or suggestion, the number one suggestion is you're not going anywhere with the child. Yeah. You wait in front of the daycare or parking lot or even in a car,
So there's no picking up your friend's kid.
Yeah, and going
doing errands, going to pay the cleaners.
Exactly, right. Unless another parent, and then yourself is make an agreement and say, yes, that's what I'm going to do. But this is not a ride share. This is just a sign out. That's the sign out process that we are helping.
Yes. So childcare costs. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone knows the craziness, right?
Oh my God. I can't imagine.
It's like sometimes it's almost like one parent should just like quit the job and just stay at home and watch the kids, right? Because it's almost like you come out even, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's incredible.
And it's not like like they do the best they can, but it's not like they're doing like A+ care, right? Like they're PhD doctors teaching mathematics and scientists and STEM to your 3-year-old kid, right? It's like basically like here's the fruit cup, and pudding cup,
It's just amazing. I don't really don't know how you people do this these days, because I heard that this is before the COVID again. Some of the childcare centers in downtown Seattle is about 3,000 or more per child, and I don't know who can afford that. Well, maybe those people who are engineers and system engineers and whatnot, maybe there might be a large, working for a larger company, they can afford it. But in general, though, $3,000 a month, and
that's insane.
It is insane. And then you kind of have to make a decision, right, with your partner. It's like, maybe it is better to stay home. One of them has to stay home and just take care of the child, because, you might be breaking even. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough decision.
It is.
And so I'm guessing you don't have a tech background, right?
Nope, I don't.
So I'm a non-tech founder too. Talk about some of the challenges you've had as being a non-tech founder trying to do a tech app.
Not understanding the language. Yeah. I have a really good developer who have helped me, but then sometimes he throw things. Oh, Kanako, the Apple wants to do this, or Google now do this. I was like, I'm reading it. It's like, what the hell does that mean? So I had to kind of ask them, can you just kind of plain language? Yeah. Can you tell me what I need to do? Mm-hmm. Why are they telling me that these are the requirements now? Then you're going to have to update it and blah, blah, blah. Because, that too. It's like they do constant updates. There's something interfere with your own thing. And then now you're going to have to open up and we're going to have to make an. Mm-hmm. So that's the part of the language, and then how the system work, and then just how to kind of learn my own thing, but then also having a good support, I guess.
And how did you find your developer?
I have kind of gone through interview process. I went out and then interviewed them and what do they think? Kind of so that I can kind of feel. I'm kind of like I like to see people and then get some feeling.
Mhm.
That's how I just not a piece of a paper or even looking at that, not a paper these days, but if you look at an internet and a review system, it doesn't really tell me a lot of stuff to me, because you can always ask your friends that, hey, can I have a 5 stars or, just some stuff like that. And so for me, so I requested a few interviews and then go out there.
You developers here in Seattle or somewhere else?
Here, because I know that a lot of people say, hey, do you want to develop in outside country? It's much cheaper. Yes, I agree with that. But again, I believe in the low in-person connection.
Yeah, there's something like doing stuff in person,
Yeah, in-person connection.
That's how you do try to do like the designs, your platform website,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing, like, like your designer lives somewhere else, you've seen the designs and you're in the same room, same whiteboard. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like, and then maybe just doing a little bit like a design of the logo or something like that. You can actually outsource and maybe anywhere and then outside of the United States. But it comes down to something really, really, that's an important part of your business. And I like to see the person in and then talk in the real life, not just over the screen. So that's one of the things that I really had for my own requirement to feel good about who am I dealing with.
So you're a developer, how do you make sure you communicate what you want that person to do, right? Because like I say this on my podcast all the time, if you ask a regular person to open the door, you get up, open the door, right? Developer, you gotta say, stand up at a 90-degree angle, turn this degree, all the minute details, turn the door handle this, and then it's not enough detail, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make sure you're able to communicate what you want the guy to do?
So I think he now understand, or the company president understand that what I intent was. In the beginning, I draw I draw the pictures basically. Flow of this is what I want. I made a copy of the cell phone, right? And then here's what it looked like in my head.
Yeah.
And then so I made pages and pages and pages of that. And this is the flow that I want to be at. If you click this, it goes here. So it's kind of like it's very basic, but that's the only way I was able to communicate. And this is what I'm thinking. So if you did this, this happens. And then it's this. And they requested that too. I want to see for the user experience as well. What do they want to be look like? And I was able to do. I mean, I was handwriting. Okay, here's the buttons in here.
Yeah, you gotta have a detail. It's this big. It's this color. It's this
exactly. This is the font.
I still laugh like I had like one time a designer. She said, "What number do you want your blue?" I wanted a blue. No, you have to pick a number. What are you talking about?
Right.
And she laid out all these numbers are blue. In my mind, like, what is happening right now?
It's exactly.
I just want blue.
Yeah. See, that's exactly the thing. It's my
I don't want to join. I don't want to do a math class.
Yeah, I know. They'll ask you. It's like what number? It's like what? What do you mean? What number? So that I had to look at it like a Google and look at what is this color number supposed to be? So I learned it. Yeah, exactly.
And colors mean like personality things. Like different emotions and stuff. Yeah.
So all those new things that you have to learn about, it's like, so now I really appreciate it that I can actually at least understand what they're looking for. So it got better and better what communication was. In the beginning, it was like, oh my gosh, don't put all these jargons. I don't understand. But then in the beginning, we actually met in person so that they understand what I'm trying to say. And then now these days it was just the email, and then sometimes I take a video. Okay, something wrong with this part. And then I just video and then can you take a look at it?
So how many developers did you actually interview to find the person that was right for you?
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Okay. So pretty fast process.
Yeah. And I every time I even got the estimate and so how much is it, and then I talked about it, and then but then it's just like I don't know, this I might be the only one, but when you buy a house or something, you always have something and it's like this is it kind of thing, and then you get that feeling too. Oh, this is the person that I feel like it should go.
And you said you're going to be on both Apple and Google?
Both. Yes, Android and both. Yeah.
So
Apple.
So you're working on both of them at the same time.
So that's another reason that it took longer. but no, they're completely.
So why do that? I know some people like do that. They do both at the same time. Some will only go Android. Some will only do
Right.
Apple. Like, why do you
Yeah.
decide like do both at the same time?
I thought about the users, right? Because when you're talking about that, this is not just the one. I mean, if you go to a childcare, you can't really say, "Oh, this is only for Apple users only." I mean, all kinds of mixtures of people, right?
Yeah.
So I just had to think about that. If we, in order to have, I mean, to help parents to be able to use this, you just have to have it both at the
Yeah.
same time, because otherwise it's just, what if it's only one Apple users and then 5 Android users?
Yeah.
One person can create a community.
Yeah.
So that was the reason. But I know that it's, I mean, downside is it takes way longer.
Takes way longer. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you ever use that social media app called Clubhouse?
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think that's why they failed, right? Because like Clubhouse, the hot thing or whatever, for some reason they only focus on Apple, right? No
Mhm.
Android, right? And they missed that opportunity where everyone is curious about it. You know, I want to get on it, right?
Mhm.
And by the time they put Android on there, it's like the opportunity passed.
But
Right?
past that, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I mean, and so it just need to be. For me, you kind of have to look at the audience, what kind of a audience, and then I guess in terms of the device, I'm sure there's more Apple users, and in general,
Yeah.
Maybe the different in the generations, but yeah, for me, I couldn't really tell. I can estimate how many parents will be using Apple. Or
Yeah.
it could be depend on the region too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. What else? The next, talk about your pilot. Is your pilot going on right now?
Mhm.
Okay. Talk about your pilot.
So I'm actually going through the entire United States. I'm not going through myself, but personally, but I am campaigning to each state and then send out the campaign emails and see if they want to interested in pilot. And if they are a pilot, then I'm completely, this is completely free. So they can try it out and see what happens. And all I'm kind of looking for is the feedback and see if there anything else particular thing that I can improve. And because of the app, anything could happen, because it could be if you don't have a Wi-Fi, maybe just the cell itself doesn't really work as fast, or those kind of things. I have done a lot of testing on my own. I got I'm sure you too, I have 3 or 4 different phones, but there's a limitation, because I'm here in Seattle and I'm interested in people in, I don't know, South Carolina, how they work. It depends on their location. And what I noticed is now is I get a lot of more interest in not suburb, but it's more like a rural areas, or where in a lot more underserved community population, and more population in underserved communities. So those communities in a technology might be limited. So I think that's another reason I just want more people to try it out and to get more information to what can I improve in the future releases.
So for your platform, like, how to put this, like a lot of people, they think they're tech savvy, but they're not, right? They have no clue how to do tech. They know how to do
Yeah.
So how do you make sure like your apps are gonna be like I won't say dummy proof for people, like
right,
dummy 101, that anyone can pick it up and use it.
Right. So that's a really good question, because for my audience, my users, childcare providers, first of all, childcare providers themselves tend to be low tech industry, and some big large corporations or franchises, they has all kinds of technology and they do stuff. But the reality is there's a family, I'm sure you heard of the family childcare providers. I mean, they have like up to maybe 10, 12 kids at home, and I mean, they have nothing, right? And so my job is to make sure that these people are comfortable using the app. So I make a lot of videos, how-to videos, and I make a flyer for specific to everything is QR code. Okay, do this, watch this video, do this. So it is more, I customize it each childcare. If the childcare providers are very interested, I'll customize it depending on the audience, and then just video after video after videos to make sure that they can watch and then follow.
Okay. Talk about this. Sometimes like we're a founder, like we're like struggling, man. My life sucks. I'm not making progress. Then if you think it, but then you think about it, like what you did last 6 months. Oh wow, like I'm way far ahead the last 6 months, right? Can you talk about that some?
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of interesting because so all of a sudden the traffic picked up for my request for a pilot. And it's, I don't know why, it's starting January. It's like almost every week. Sometimes I have 3 or 4 appointments. And I would say, if you believe in it and you know that it works, just keep going. I mean, that's the only thing. It's just, you just have to have a passion.
Or at least keep on going until they sell you gotta have another $100,000, right?
Exactly. And if you can, I mean, to me, it's like if you can actually afford to keep, a bit minimum maintenance in terms of money, and all you have to do is you send a, for me right now, it's like a mode, right? Because I'm recurring same thing over and over again. It's not enough. I know that I had to do more, but at least it started happening. People are being aware of that I have this and all that. So I would say, yeah, that's correct. If you are at a good place, all you have to do is really market, given what the tools that you have, then don't give up. Just keep going.
Can you talk about how you did the email campaign? Like, how did you decide what people to reach out to? Because like, it's not like you go on LinkedIn, like, do a Boolean search on LinkedIn, like, working parents, right? Like, how did you find these people in your email campaign?
For me, it's the childcare providers.
Okay.
So the childcare providers, they're all licensed through states, and their information is available publicly, and also websites and stuff like that. So that's how I call them, or I actually solicit. Hey, here's the things that's happening. Would you like to answer my questions? So all kinds of different ways that I could try to get the email addresses, and then right.
And who are you using for your email campaign? What?
Right now, because it's very reasonable. That's what I'm using. I'm using Flowdesk.
Okay, I haven't heard of them.
Yeah, it's a very reasonable price.
Okay.
It's about less than $300, and you can actually email as many as you want.
Oh, well, I'm gonna check them out.
Yeah. So it is, to me, is like, because other email platforms, they'll charge you, right? Depending on how many email or subscribers. This one, it doesn't.
Yeah. So
I just like, okay. And it was I don't know, still they call it a pilot stage, but there may be. But somebody, one of the marketing person kind of introduced me to that, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna try it, because I was really like, I don't know what to use.
Yeah.
And
there's so many of them out there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And with different price points,
different price points. And then at a certain point, your subscribers hits some amount, then they'll start charging this a lot.
And of course, they don't tell you.
They won't tell you, And then for me, again, is I have to be under my budget, and I can't spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month and do that. And then Flowdesk allow me to do that right now. So I'm very happy with that fact that there's a lot of things that I wish that has changed and improved, but I can't beat the, they can't beat the price.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. So who's going to pay for this in the future? The parent, the childcare facility,
so
the kid,
right? Exactly right. But for now, here's what I'm saying. It kind of could be a combination of it's a subscribing. The parents can actually pay for through the childcare provider. Okay. So childcare provider can actually, pay for it, but they can turn around and then charge. Okay. Parents. That's kind of like a subscribing model, one of the subscribing model that I'm kind of thinking.
So I just thought about this, like, suppose there's a childcare center, we'll say Highland Park, Dallas. Highland Park is like real upscale in the area, $1 million homes. And of course, they'll probably charge a lot more for childcare, right? Or you might go to, like, what's the East St. Louis, not as good neighborhood, like property tax low. Are you going to charge different prices based on the economic neighborhood? Or so
that's what I'm thinking, because I think that I like the upper scale community to support the underserved communities. Yeah. Because I'm a philosopher, I believe in the philosophy of community. If you have something that you can share, please share. And then because that's the only way it works. Yeah.
So next, I read somewhere where it has how are children's lives enriched? Like, I think you said this is going to enrich the lives of children. How is this platform going to enrich the children's lives?
Well, so here is what I think. I don't know if you remember, like, let's say, really long day at work. You come to the child care or child provider, or even at the school, you pick up your child. And then when you're young, that's what they do, but they whine or they cry, they want something. And that really, and then so let's say if you are stressed out and then came to childcare and then you're running late, whatnot, or even if you're not running late, you're like, you come to the childcare and you're so tired, and then you pick up your child and your child are, oh, I don't want to go home, or what, it just have a fit. And then that really actually affects you, right? Because we're all human being. And when you're especially stressed out, you just don't do well with the kids.
Yeah.
So the ultimate goal for me, is the parents can be supported by each other, so that our stress will be a little less, so that we can cope with the kids, and you go home with a happy face, and then kids will respond to that.
Yeah.
That's my belief. Because when you're sad, when you're tired, you are angry for some other reason, the kids actually really kids are really good at observing things, and they kind of take that, and then sometimes it might be internalize it, or sometimes it will express in different ways. And then there wasn't a study actually done in 2022. Is that 2022? I might be wrong, but the one of the university did was when the parents are supported, the working parents are supported as a community, and then reciprocate support, children had a less behavioral issues. And then that's what ultimately my goal is to make. I want kids to be happy, growing up happy, and not having a traumatized and then some sort of a experience. And then in order to do that, I think you have to support the entire family, especially parents. And then I know that because it happened to me. My parents had a lot of stress, and then it affected me so much when I was growing up.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine, like, you had a long day at work, you're frustrated, you're kind of pissed off. You go to pick up your kid like, I wanted mommy to pick me up, not you.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
like, screw you, kid.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. What's okay?
you stay here until your mom come get you. Then,
Yeah, exactly. And the kids, the kids are kids. They do all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a parent, you're not supposed to take it personally.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? You're like, oh my God, it's just like
what kind of demon child am I raising?
Yeah, who are you? But that's how we react. Mm-hmm. And so I think I'm hoping that it's like if we have, as a parents, have a less stress in our life, we can deal situation better, instead of like running. I mean, I done it before, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I had to really get to this place, and then I pick up my child, and then you're like frazzled by the time you get to the childcare, and you're like, and then your son goes like, mommy, I want this ice cream right now, and it's like crying or whatever. And you're like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And I didn't react well.
Yeah.
And then you go home and like everybody is just in a bad mood, and it just doesn't do well for the
mental state.
Mentally. That's what I'm. Yeah.
So I think it's a good follow-up question, right?
Yeah.
So you remember back the day when Steve Jobs bought the iPod out, and people don't remember this back then, that other device, right? That's way better, right? I had more storage, more songs, better audio quality, everything way better, right? But they would say, by the XYZ, we have 1.56235, all these numbers and stats. And he just said 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? Immediately everyone knew what it was, right? Even though it was a fair product, or not even fair, but it was as good as other ones. Like, are you going to buy something that says like all these stats and numbers? You don't understand what 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? So having said that, what's your 1,000 songs in your pocket for your company, right? Like, what's your big mission statement to change the world, so to speak?
That's a hard question. How people fear, I would say.
Okay.
Meaning that we kind of, I don't know how to express this. In this culture, or any other culture, maybe we're kind of learn to not to trust other people. But the fact is, though, you do have everybody has a friend, right? I mean, most of us do, and we don't do background check on our friends. So I'm kind of basing my philosophy in the same thing. I'm not asking parents to be a best friends day one. You're gonna have to do your own homework, but I'm providing the services so that you can connect right away and check out each other and ask questions and talk to at the childcare when you're passing by, or you ask, hey, do you have 5 minutes? We can kind of introduce ourselves. So because every time people ask, do you do background check on the parents? It's like, no, I don't. This is not the service to do, bring you it's not the child, how do I say, it's not a child care service. You're gonna have to do your own homework. This is a community building, and it takes for everybody to put in their own effort to become a safe place. I mean, create a safe place for the community.
So this is probably a bad example, but I just got back from Vegas today, right? My friend had a wedding. My friend had a wedding on Sunday, right? And so my other friend Kyoki came to visit me from my past, so we're hanging out. And so it was like 10 of us guys, right? None of us needed to. Only thing we all knew the groom, right? So that was like our background check, all right?
Mm-hmm.
I got invited by the groom. We got invited by the groom. So we're gonna presume that we're all good people, right? Like there's no background check, so don't go on LinkedIn like you said, or stalk with someone, no list. Hey, send me this other people you're just gonna be there so I can check them out, right? So you show up, and the background check was, we all know the one guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of same thing with the parents thing, right?
Right. Yeah, and you do your homework, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really ask the person you met first time and say, hey, that's why there is a device and a communication device. I'm texting, or I have each parent take a video and say, introduce yourself, and just to let you show face, and they say, I do look like this, and this is what I do, and I'm available this time, and let me know next time you see me at the childcare, just to come over and we can chat. And you just kind of have to. I mean, it's a building block. You have to build a relationship, and that's exactly it.
So next, talk about date nights, which I think is a fun, the
fun
part of it, right?
Part of it,
the fun part, the date nights.
Yeah. So the date nights. I mean, I'm sure that you and your spouse or partner, once you have a child, I mean, date night. What is that, right? Because if you are able to afford it to have a child, I mean, babysitter, great, but a lot of us don't really have a lot of a disposable income after you pay $3,000 in the childcare during the day. So then you're like, oh, it's okay, that's too much. It's just like it's hard to, and then maybe the teenagers in your neighborhood might be able to do it, but sometimes teenagers are not really that responsible. I had my own experience, it's like right, and so, but then what if you are able to do something to help others during the day, during the week, and then you can ask other parents that you know of that have kids that are around the same age, and they say, hey, I want to have a day night with my husband or my partner. Can you watch my kids for 3 hours? And then they'll probably say, oh, yeah. I mean, if they are available. Yeah. And then you don't, and then in my system, you don't have to feel guilty because it's a point system. You earn points, you give points based on what you have helped others. So in that way, you already know somebody, right? And then you might have already know the other child, and hopefully they have already met a few times at the childcare, and that would be reciprocal. And then you can actually do the same for the other couple.
That's a good question. Like with the point system, I'll make this up. Like suppose one parent has been on 6 months, have no points, right? Do they are they gonna get kicked off because they're participating enough, or they get bonus points, get more points? It's
there would be right now to begin with, it's a pilot program. So I'm kind of that's another thing that I learn about. I like to learn from the parents is I'll give 100 points to begin with. So so that you start with that, and then I monitor then at certain points. If you got negative, you won't be able to use it. So you're gonna have to back on to what the level where you can use them. And so again, this is again, I might be a dreamer, but I think it is a education for the parent, for our company to educate them. Hey, this is the reciprocal community. You don't take advantage of people.
Yeah.
And then, and of course, I'm sure there are people eventually that will be just a take. But then in that case, then there is a monitoring system so that I can actually kick them off.
And so this is probably way down too in the weeds, but are people gonna be like, give advanced points to other people? Like, I have all these points.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah,
Exactly. So they can actually transfer to each other if they wanted to. And I mean, that's great because that's another way of community helping each other. So, and the only thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to tie that to the money. That's not a, it's not a, you can't really sell it to other people because that's not the point. It's you have to do your work to earn the points, and then that's the point that it's just to kind of.
What's your goal for your policy? Like, get a certain number of beta testers? Is it got a certain number of paid customers? What's your goal?
The ultimate goal is really getting the paying customers. But right now, I like to get more. I mean, nationwide, I like to get a different cases of a usage so that I can learn from it, what works, what doesn't, because I definitely don't think that this is a complete last version of the app. There could be some other things that I could have add on.
You probably get some feedback you never thought about getting, right?
Right.
Like, oh man, that's a brilliant idea. How come I didn't think of that?
Yeah, and then I have other ideas, but again, one thing at a time.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Because ideas cost money to execute, right?
Exactly. So I have a whole bunch of other ideas, but still, you're gonna have to do something to make prove it once, and get feedback and make an improvement. So for me, it is just really in the process.
And so you've bootstrapped so far, right?
Yeah.
Is a plan to eventually try to raise funds later on? Or you would try to bootstrap the whole thing and just use paid customers?
For me, that I'm more focusing on, I really want to get the data for the usage and tractions and feedback, because that's more important than anything else. I mean, the money, it's great, but that's not the ultimate goal. Anyways, to me, is if I can have the users that it tells me that, hey, this is useful and very useful and it will help me so much, but here's a few things that you can improve it, and then it's great. And then depending on that, if I have money, I'll do it. And then, but it's just that really, I'm not saying this because I already built it. Money is gone. Yeah, I want people to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk about how you came to the name for your company.
Task AI. Yes. So Task AI, and this is kind of, I think people think like, what is this dash in between all that stuff? But there's a reason. Task AI in Japanese means to help each other. That's it. Because when I was thinking about the word and how should I call this? Oh, I had a 500 different names that I came up with. I was brainstorming, and it's just nothing really stick with me. And then someday I was kind of thinking in Japanese. I was like, how do I call this if I were in Japan? Then it's like, Task AI. Oh, that's it. And how do I spell it? And I was doing that. And then, I'm sure everybody else does that. You did the domain, then there's a lot of easier spelling was already taken. So the solution was to come up with the closest I could get to it, Task AI.
Nice. So next, you have some ground rules. Like, I guess the ground rules are pretty much like your values.
Yes, the values, and it's the rules to play nice.
Yeah.
And then again, I always say ground rules. You tell your child the golden rules, right? So you have to treat other people in a way how you want to be treated, and that's it. You have to play nice. If you are a parent, you have to know that. Yeah.
So talk about this. Like, I think most entrepreneurs start they know it's going to take a long time, right? They're like, within a year, 2 years, I'll be good, right? But the process is way longer than that, right? How have you been be able stay motivated or stay on the same path? Like, man, I've been doing this for a long time, right? Like, what's going on, right?
Oh, man, that is the hardest. The motivation, keep motivation, and then keep motivated, and just to keep at it every day. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, that is I think one of the hardest thing. Next to me was the next marketing, right? But then I have a good a coach that it's a paid coach, but I decided that it works for me to have a coach, someone who's really knows my business and then my personality. And it's kind of keep telling me, asking me, what are you doing, Kanako?
Yeah.
What's your goal this week? What do you need to do? So I do have somebody who's really taking accountability is my job. And so in a way, I don't think I could have done it by myself, because it's the lonely place, right? Everybody talks about entrepreneur is a lonely place.
It's the myth out there, you
Myth,
know.
yeah.
It's so sexy. You know, you're you know, on the yacht drinking beer and mimosas, you know.
It's like, hey,
you know.
writing down and all the new idea, but that's not that. It's a very lonely place.
Yeah, I know, like this, but like when Silicon Valley Bank closed down, all the stuff on Twitter, like people like, they don't need no money. If you have a tech startup, you're a millionaire anyway, right? Or not working no money, you know, all this shit that came out. Like, what? Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it is every day. It's up and down, right? It's like in the morning, you feel things are feeling great. Oh my gosh, I had another pilot appointment. Yay. The next thing, you're like, dun, you know, it's just like a roller coaster.
Then you have the pilot appointment and they tell you like this platform sucks and it's horrible.
Right,
like,
exactly.
I will never buy this from you.
And or I mean, I'm trying to get a patent, right? And then, you know, I had a meeting with a patent examiner and said, it's like, are you kidding me? And this kind of a up and downs, and then but you get, I think you get used to that after a while.
Yeah.
But then but the struggle as a lonely entrepreneur, I don't think that's just disappears. And then keep motivating yourself is the hardest, because you can always give up and say, I'm too tired.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that only way you fail as an entrepreneur is if you quit, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
And then like people like to talk about, you know, if I get 100 customers, be easier, 1,000 customers, or raise money. It just makes more problems, right? And I got to take care of 100 customers, you know. They give them money, like you got to give them a product, right? You got to hire people. And it's like,
exactly.
There's always more stuff.
More stuff. It's the challenges are endless. And then another thing that I don't, you know, I have ideal customers, that I have a vision. So I don't let that, that's the core of my business. And I don't let go like this, just no matter what people say. Because if you lose that core, the one thing it's important, right? Just so anybody said, what's your ideal customer? And you have a persona. And I don't let that wiggle. Otherwise, you're like all over the place. And then,
Let's talk about your coach, right? Like, how did you pick your coach? Because like, so it's like, you know, all the time you'll get emails, you know, let me be your coach. Like, first of all, who are you? You know, second of all, like I'll get messages on LinkedIn email. I noticed you're recruiting or whatever, hiring whatever, it had nothing to do with what I'm doing, right? And like all the coaches, like, you need a coach, you know, like, well, why are you, I mean, it's like, it's a lot of these coaches, like they approach you, they don't say like what they've done in the past. Like, I've successfully, you know, mentored like 10 CEO founders, now they're doing this. And it's always like, that's generic stuff, right? So how did you pick your coach?
So when I started, I actually met few people, and I was
and were you looking for a coach this time, or they were looking for
I was more like, I was looking for, instead of like a business success coach, I was looking for a life coach, because it was a time I was still working as a CPA. It was like just the time of the where I really didn't know what I want to do with my life. Am I gonna stay in this spot for the rest of my life, or can I really start something with my life that I feel comfortable with and I feel more proud, right? So life coach is the one that I was looking for. And I have met few people and I interview them, and then few people that are kind of a little flaky, that after we met, and then it's, oh yeah, let's start it, and then they stopped talking to me and stuff like that. So then I asked another person that, do you know any good life coach? And then the person talked to another person and then introduced me a current coach that I have from East Coast. And it's kind of interesting. I never met that person in person.
So it's all over Zoom? Okay.
Every day. I mean, not every day. I mean, yeah.
That's the
to
hell of a
me-
coach every day.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have a coach every day, but every week we
Yeah.
meet every week. But yeah, it's kind of weird. There is some connection, and then I asked her all kinds of questions. Like, have you coached someone who's from other country in a different
that's a good question.
culture?
That's a good question.
How do you understand that? I mean, I have a different background. My English is second language. Have you ever met someone like that and then coached? And so I kind of had all my questions that how, and then there is always, again, going back to just like a house that you liked, you found some connection. And that's how I kind of started. I feel like this person is really understands me. And even though she said, no, I never walked with anyone who's from other countries or other cultures, and that, but I kind of felt like, I think she understands me. Yeah.
So this is the worst coaching scenario I've ever seen, right? So I had a good friend. She was looking for a coach. And so we went to meet this person, right? I just happened to be at the same time. I waited, got some coffee. And so then 30 minutes, she came back to me and the coach told her, like, I have a special going right now, $1,500. You need to pay me $1,500 now to reserve my services, or it's going to go to $3,000. I'm like, what? And I know you didn't pay, right? So no, of course I didn't pay, right? But it was like high pressure tactics, like, I can do this for you. I need the money now, right? And she works for this big time coaching thing here in Seattle, right? Yeah.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, get away from this person.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just like any other service, right? I believe that if somebody who feels that there's a value, they'll pay for it no matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
So, wow, that's scary.
Yeah, that's my worst one I've seen. So next one we do, I want to go through put up this video that's on YouTube real fast.
Yeah.
So talk us through it.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one that
for everyone and everyone's back. Your need is running long again, and your child's daycare is closing in 15 minutes. There's no way you can get to daycare before it closes. But you're not strong. How do you stay so calm? With Task K9 in a click of a button, you know your trusted peer is.
You did all these videos yourself?
I had to help the video photographer, creator. I came up with these images, and yeah. And hired a professional voice actress.
You are feeling other parents and kids' childcare through the Task K9. Many of the other parents share that they are feeling the exact same way. You receive not only encouragement, but also tips that work for your child. You are not alone. All thanks to your new community through Task K9. Your 3-year-old has just thrown at you in the grocery store. You drop everything and come home. Even though your weekend has just started, you're already exhausted. You wish you could take an hour break and decompress. You can do just that. Now you're sitting on your couch with a big cup of coffee and listening to your favorite music. How did you manage to get this straight? Because you earned village points by helping other parents a few times a week using this technology. It is now someone else's turn to give you a break. Another Task K9 parent took your child for a play date to a nearby park. Your child is happy, and you are happy. Do you want a little help with parenting? Do you like to help others? Do you want to be a part of a community like this? If so, tell your child care provider to watch this video to bring Task K9 to your child care facility. After all, Task K9 can only be downloaded by invitation. Task K9 is an app that built.
So why invitation only?
Oh, because your child care provider has to be the core of that.
Okay.
You wanted to use it for the security purposes and how everything works.
Okay. So you already talked about your company some, but can you go like in more details, like how you started it, what you focus on now, what your big dream vision for this moving forward?
Right. So how it started, I kind of touched on it a little bit because it was my own experience. I was running late. I was already stressed out after work, picking up my child, and the last minute, sometimes it's late, and I felt guilty and embarrassment. And you had to call. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm running 5-10 minutes late. But sometimes you never know because there's a traffic, and you might be wind up coming in there half an hour late. And then my child's, by the time I got to the childcare, he's alone, thinking about, where's my mom? Everybody else is gone. And I just like, you don't want to see your child's face. It's like, sad. And it's like, he felt like abandoned or something. And then the childcare providers the staff were great. It's, oh, don't worry. They always say, just drive carefully. But I know they're feeling like, okay, what time is this?
See you late again.
Late again. And I really kind of felt like, what can I do to just, and then, I couldn't really come up with that idea during the time that my son was at the, childcare age. But then later on, when, after 20 years as working as an accountant, there was something happened because one of my closest, I guess, supervisor and also / friend who had suffered cancer, and then she passed away within literally as soon as we found that she was ill, and then she died within like a month or something, and that was just shocking to me. And then that was waking up cold and say, your life can be just gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I just really had to think about that, my life, and because it was a great job and it was a great company, but for me, it just felt like this isn't something that I just don't want to do the rest of my life. And like I said, I'm not really that great accountant because I think I'm a creative person. I rather do something more creative. And you can't do creative stuff with the numbers. So I was kind of thinking about the opportunity, and that's where the earlier we talked about the coach, and then I was kind of going back and forth. And I thought about, maybe I can get a job in some other company or some other firm, or maybe I can move back to Japan. And then I didn't know what to do. So I met with the coach. We went through what I really like to do, and then. I think maybe this is corny to think that, but I like to help people because I always because a lot of people extended a hand to me once I got to this, or before that, but especially once I got to this country, not knowing anybody, without other people's help, I couldn't really get here. And so I just like to pay back, but also I really feel good by myself helping others. And when I'm able to, that's what I love to do. So then that's what I kind of come at how can I help other people? And then came up with this idea of, if we can be all within a community that the people can actually access easily, then I might be able to create the model of the community that you can actually help each other. So that's kind of came about.
Kanako, how do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, I take care of myself, exercise and running, all that. I have to move. I'm a very active person. Okay. So I can't really, that's why I'm kind of interested in why I was able to, I like to learn myself that I was sitting and then looking at the computer and then working for all
20
these
years,
20 years of looking at the people's financial statements. I'm just amazed that I was able to do that. But I just have to move my body. Yeah. So that's what and I eat well. I really don't drink much. And then I'm very careful with what I eat. And I eat a lot of green vegetables, and, I don't eat any fast food and all that.
That's probably smart.
But I do eat, Japanese food quite a bit, but then that Japanese food has a lot of sodium. So that's another thing I had to be careful with though.
Yeah. So your coach is like one of your mentors, right?
Yes.
So do you have any other mentors?
Not at this moment. Yeah. I always looking for other mentors and
Your coach is your main one right now.
yeah, maybe she's more, yeah. It's mentally she's really, well, business wise too, but she helps me out to clean out my, I guess, what I'm thinking so that I can actually think clearly every week. Right.
So to follow up on the thing, like you said, giving back, you have your mentor, but who are you mentoring? Do you have anyone that you're mentoring?
So right now, actually, I also work as a lead advisor for the small business resiliency program. It's called at the Japan American Society of Washington State.
Okay.
And they hire me as a contract person to provide assistance to the small businesses, not just like a technology startup, but as somebody who really like, let's say I want to start the mobile cafe. How do I gonna start from a scratch? How do I get a business license? And then this is a community where many Japanese immigrants who recently came here, that their English skills are not as good as mine. And then that's where I'm able to explain or show how in Japanese so that they get more comfortably do things or they can get a clear understanding of what they're happening. So this is a program that actually Department of Commerce of the Washington State created, and they're the one who sends the funding to we have like 39 different networks in the groups that are working, and then each community we provide to help small businesses.
How do you do your schedule like every day? Do you like work 10 hours a day? Do you work, do you like work until something's done? Do you like take Thursday, Friday off? Like, or is it just like all over the place?
Day off for the entrepreneur? Are you kidding me? I start, so, my son is high school, so we get up early because, it's like they go to school really early. My goodness, I don't know. So my I guess business hours start at 7 a.m. and then usually ends at 4 because I had to pick up my son from school. And then it's necessary I do work after the dinner. And so it's like but then I have I wear 3 different hats. So that this task guy as a CEO, as a task guy, but also I do have my own CPA practice. So I have my own clients work. And then on top of that, I do have this lead advisor for the small business resiliency program.
And you're still a wife, you're still a mother.
Yeah.
I'm like you say, you have friends,
yeah,
social obligations.
So everything is in my schedule, but yeah, I'm sure something is fall off always. Like I can't remember what we have this, what? Yeah.
Yes. So what's something you've learned about being an entrepreneur that you like didn't think you would learn? Like, or let me phrase that question. So like there's like you had to learn marketing, sales, all this kind of stuff, right? What's something that you learned like I can't believe I learned this, right? Like I would never imagine I could learn this stuff, but now I'm doing it.
Well, some of the marketing stuff, because it's like a really what should be you focusing on how you like thinking about the ideal client persona. I never thought about that. You had to really laser focused on that to be able to kind of focus on your business. Yeah. So something like that, but also maybe just the day-to-day thing. I think how to juggle everything. You're going to have to really think about if you want to do something that your goal, you have to really put in your calendar. Like for me, like I said, motivation is like you said, it's hard, right? Like when you're an entrepreneur. So I allocate like 7:30 to 8:30, no matter what. I have a 1 hour of task AI time. Okay. You're going to have to do something. Otherwise, it's just everything is like all other projects that are coming in and you have to take care of it, but you do have to. So I think I think I got, even now as looks as chaos as appeared to be, I think I have a better sense of how do I organize in my schedule. Okay. I'm kind of amazed by that I'm not really that organized.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. So talk about this, like people will say like, work on product, work your business. Other people, like you said, you got to do market, you network and stuff, right? But I think some people like only do only product stuff and no one knows who they are, or vice versa. That every little networking event and the product's not built, right? Like how do you yourself like make sure you have a balance between networking, telling people what you're doing, meeting new people, and building the product? Because it has to be synced and balanced, right?
Right. It's true that you're right. I think it depends on the industry and what kind of product you have. But for me though, I think I'm focused, because for me, at my stage of my company, for me is the goal is to have a pilot program used by, at least a large 10, like for example, the childcare providers. So I'm focused on that. And unless like I don't go out just randomly out to the, I don't know, some kind of a networking event, unless there's something connected to that.
Like you go into like we'll say like a gaming convention.
Might
be probably a waste of your time.
Right, exactly. Or even like a how do I say, investor, sometimes great meet and stuff. Because unless I really know there are people who might be interested in that I'm meeting, I just don't, because my goal is to meet childcare providers, not, that stages will, I'm sure, change. I hope it will change. So I'm very conscious about that this really makes sense in my life right now to spend time for this.
Is there such a thing as a child care association? Like,
there are.
Okay. I know, but somehow I get this a newsletter from some kind of funeral association, right? I don't know how I got on it, right? And so it has like all the funeral homes, United States, all the directors, information, right? So I wonder the child care, the same thing.
Yeah, there are some, and it's sometimes it's kind of, I think it's kind of hard to. My struggle is though that also, how do you get on that association? Meaning, most of the association, they don't like to have people coming in business purposes, right? So I think there's a dedicated kind of balance.
Do they have like child care association conventions,
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
I haven't actually, there was one big one coming up in May, and I actually participated a few years ago, and they were looking for speakers. And I thought, well, this would be a good place. So I applied for it, and then this is a virtual, still this year it's virtual. They had like a 2 days, 3 days, I can't remember. And I applied for it, and then, well, I didn't really get that particular spot, but they gave me a really good feedback. So I'm not, they say, oh, we love to have you. We really liked your subject, but we have so many that we just couldn't fit there. So, I mean, I'm just kind of trying to study and then where people are, what the child care providers congregate. And it's just kind of one by one and kind of moving toward to that.
Hey, can you give us your social media so people can reach out to you?
What?
So can you give us your social media so people can reach out to you?
Yeah. So, well, I'll tell you though, I don't do a lot of social media because again, childcare providers are not on the social media much. So that's why, and I started doing that. I did the Instagram, and then I did the Facebook, and I thought I was going to do Twitter, but then it's like now when I'm think of it, this is the reason that I'm telling you this, based on how childcare providers view my campaign letters. They're all 97% it's a desktop. So that would tell you that people are looking at that work, not phones. So I do have an Instagram, but then it is actually it's a task AI. And then also Facebook. I do this, but I really rarely update it because of this. So I guess the social media, the only thing is like probably that you can go to my www.taskai-.com. And that'll be, I know it's not sexy, sorry. I used to done that, but that's the thing I learned is what works, what doesn't. And I'm trying to not to spend time that's something that is not going to be working for me.
For your product, can anyone sign up for, or they have to have someone in childcare?
So for right now, if you are a parent and then your child is going to the child care, some sort of a child care, you definitely have to bring it, just like a video. You have to talk to your child care provider.
Okay.
They're the one who's going to be a core, and they are the one who basically be the core of the community and the connection, and for the security purposes as well. So I would love to have a parent talking to the child care provider and say, I want this.
So the people who do pilot now, are they going to be locked in like cheaper prices, so to speak, or better pricing? Because eventually you have to charge more money, right?
It's a better pricing right now, which is free.
So they'll be locked.
Sorry, but yeah, and then I will definitely make a better arrangement for the people who actually come in, and then early bird prices in the future. But
and for a pricing, it'll be like month to month, a year.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, all kinds of different ways that I was kind of thinking that you can actually subscribe for annually. It could be much cheaper. But even that's true. That I'm kind of like to get some opinion of the parents and say, how much can you afford?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything else I asked you that I didn't, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, this is great. It was fun. Thank you. Thank you so much for let me talk. And it is so much fun to talk. I never thought that it's like I'll be talking about all different things about Japan and all that. You don't really get to talk about yourself much anyway, right?
No.
So yeah.
So can you give us any lesson, advice, or wisdom, or anything you want to talk about?
Wisdom or if you have a dream, stick with it. Unless you call your shot. But what I learned was, if you think it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's all in your head. If it works, it will work. We have to make an effort. But that's what I kind of feel like, just like any other inventions or whatever, right? Everybody said, oh, that's so stupid. Why do you do that? Or, most of I always talk about the Edison, the story about the child. What is that? I think it was a grade school teacher wrote to his mother. And mother said, oh, you're so genius that there's nothing to learn at the school. And then he wants you to, me to teach you at a school.
And of course, there's direct opposite.
There was a direct opposite. So I think I really think that if you believe in that, you can. And
I can remember somewhere said like, if you say you can, doesn't matter if you say you can, you can't. You're right both ways, right?
Yeah.
If you say I can, you're going to do it. If you say I can't do it, you're not going to do it.
Right. And so I think that a lot of things is the mental exercise, because we can always do whatever we want, decide in tomorrow and just, I'm going to quit, and then you quit. But then that might be the only thing that is stopping you.
Yeah.
So, and then otherwise for us entrepreneurs, if you don't believe it, you can't do it. I mean, it's a hard life. In some ways, it's a very enjoyable and I think I learn a lot every day. It's very flexibility will give us and all that creativity, but then it's not easy.
Yeah, like for me, like I went to Vegas for a few days, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I worked from some company, there's no way I could do it. It's like last minute trip, no way I could have done it, right?
Right.
Don't get me wrong, like I was like having a good time. I was still like doing work, or trying to do some work too, right?
Right.
You work for some corporation, you're not doing that, right?
But exactly. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I were working for the CPA firm still, right? I can't really take that a couple hours away from my work. But so you, I mean, it's everything you can do. You have a lot of flexibility, and it's a great life for me. I wish that I started it much earlier. I think. But
I'm sure you do.
But then, there is always timing.
Yeah.
There is always
timing,
something, some life changes happen. Then you realize that, and that's most of people make a move.
Mm-hmm.
So
talk about this. I think a lot of people, when they start a company, they underestimate the amount of mental toughness they need, right? You talk about the mental toughness you have to do this.
Yes, I completely agree. It's the mental. It's a lot. I almost say 90% is the mental, that you really have to be because it's so hard to be inconsistent, and then to be able to accountable yourself is so hard. Because I think humans are kind of nature and kind of lazy in a way, I think.
Yes, yes.
And then you just have to whip yourself to get up and do things. And that sometimes some subjects that I really don't, I mean, like making a cold calls. Sometimes I do have to do it, but I
Yeah.
I hate it.
You just want to like,
Yeah. But then sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And that mental capacity is, I mean, not much capacity, but it's more like, how, I don't know how to call it. It's the mental ability to be able to force it.
one time
through.
this person told me, Jason, how you doing, man? You do this all the time. You kick with it. I like, dude, I'll be honest with you, I want to quit every day. You do? Yeah, I want to quit every day, right? How come you don't? Because I'm not a punk, right? You know, I'm not a punk. I got to keep on going, right?
Yeah.
Because like, who doesn't want to like take the easy way out, right? You know, stay at home, you know, like drink some bourbon, play with the kids, watch TV all day long, have no responsibilities.
Well, the thing is, the people, we don't talk about it. People don't talk about that, what they do, right? It's hard, but they don't want to show that, because when you're talking about, you look at Instagram or Facebook or whatever, people talk about things that are really fabulous. And then you feel like everybody, oh my gosh, people's life is such a shiny, you know, but the thing is, that's what they show, but you never know what people are going through. So it's just that people don't really talk about what's the hardest thing. I mean, oh, I had a really hard day. You know, you don't talk about that.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Think what else. So who else is doing what you're doing? Are there like other companies doing this?
Not exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually well, one good thing about this is the patent examiner told me there is nothing out there that exactly what
That's
I'm doing.
good news for you.
But, you know, that's the thing. It's a good news for me, but in the same time, I mean,
there's always competition, you know, like
there's always competition. It will come up with
it might be somebody else. It might be competition, could be someone who doesn't have a cell phone, right?
Right. Exactly. So there are, you know, you can what I'm doing, you can do it by you know, analog. I mean, that could be a competition.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, there's always, but you just have to kind of stay on the course and then be creative, I guess, to come up with the different things and to help others, that make it easier for people to use.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So last chance. Anything else you want to talk about? Go over.
Oh, so anybody who's listening and the parents, please ask your childcare providers to maybe try to use this, because I'd love to have you.
Thanks, Kanako. Thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.